Alexis Duggan, EDD, Higher Education, will be hooded by Dr. Anissa Guerin.
Hey y'all, so I know it's been a minute since we've been in the at-home studio, but what better way to come back by reintroducing myself as Dr. Duggan. Listen, I was like, let me give the peoples a little update on my doctoral journey and the amazing end that it has now come to. But before we get started, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. So if you're new here, I have been in my doctorate program, or was in my doctorate program, since August 2020. So actually just a little backstory. I was living in Florida and I was like, you know what, I want to get out of Florida. I want to see what else, the world has to offer. And I had gotten a job in Arizona. I actually was going to be a special education teacher in a federal prison. So if you're new here, your girl was a teacher. I always worked in special education. I always worked with folks with disabilities. So I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna go and do this in a federal prison. And I had already gotten the job. But if you know anything about the federal system, it takes a little minute to get on. So I was also interviewing here in Texas for a job to work. I'm at a college and I was going to work in disability services. And really, like, I kind of already knew which route I wanted to go. And although I had gotten a job in Arizona, I was like, I'm still interview here because this is the one that I really want. And I knew that I wanted to go back to school. So I got my master's degree in 2019. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I want to work at a college. I want to work in student disability services. And I want to go back to school to get a doctorate. Now, like I always knew that I would probably go back and get a master's. Like even when I graduated from undergrad. But at that point, like graduating from undergrad, like master's was in my head, but doctorate wasn't. And I remember like 2017-ish, I was a teacher and I was talking to my principal and I was like, yeah, I'm finishing up my master's program and I want to get a doctorate degree. And I remember like, she was like, okay, girl, you better go ahead. And after I said that, like, I was like, oh, wow. Like, I can't say if that was like ever like really like a thought for me. But when I said that, I was like, oh, wow. Like, I guess it is. And from that moment on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a doctorate degree. I'm not sure how soon I'm going to go back. I knew that I was not willing to take out any student loan debt. So I knew that that's why I really wanted to work at a college, because in my head at that time, I might have thought it was free or at least discounted, and I was like, I'm going to really need that because your girl is not taking out any student loans. So in 2020, so I got to the university in 2019. I was already like looking at the doctorate stuff and seeing how long I needed to be there to get my discount, because at that time they were you would pay for your fees and they would pay for your tuition, and it was still like pretty expensive even with just paying for the fees, because that's where they get you at most of the time. And so I was looking, what's the requirements? And I remember thinking, like, I am not trying to take no GRE. Like, that was just not a thing for me. I got a master's degree at this point. I got a whole national certification. I ain't trying to take no GRE. And I remember, like, I messaged, like, the college, and I was like, hey, is there any way that I could not, have to take the GRE? And they was basically like, no. And I was like, So I kind of sat on it, for a little minute, because I just knew that was not, I didn't want to take another test. Then you ain't like it's free. I was like, heck no. And I remember, y'all, like, no lie, like in my spirit, I felt like that I wasn't going to have to take the GRE. I didn't know when and how it was going to happen, but I just felt like I'm not going to have to take the GRE. And guess what? Boom, COVID hit. When COVID hit, baby, they put a lot of those requirements down because they wanted to keep enrollment numbers up. When that happened, baby, and I seen that, I applied and got in, of course. So I was like, see, thank you, Lord. He put that little message in my spirit, and it came to pass. In August 2020, a year and some change after I finished my master's, I enrolled in my doctorate degree in higher education. And the first semester I took like a full course load, and that was still during the height of COVID. So they were giving like a class away for free and all these other things. So I was like, baby, I want everything that's free. And I buckled down, was working full time, and I started the program. And also, if you're new here, be sure to check out my doctoral journey playlist. I'll tag it somewhere here or here for you to be able to go back and just watch my journey. But August 2020, baby, this thing kicked off officially. And if you've been watching my channel, you already know your girl got tired and fed up with that job. And I was like, Doug, deuces, okay, I'm ilt. But at that point, the university had started paying for degrees in full. So it was no more, you pay fees and we pay tuition. They were taking the cost at 100%. Now, at the time that I was getting ready to leave the university, I was finished with my coursework, and I was working on my chapters 1 through 3. So I was done with coursework, and I was in my dissertation hours. So once you get into dissertation hours, pro tip, you should not be paying fees anymore. You should just be paying the tuition. And at that time, it was like 600-ish and change, and still is. So that's a little pro tip. Once you get into those dissertation hours, you shouldn't be paying all that money. So make sure that you are not doing that. If you are a doctoral student, contact the financial aid office or whatever, and get clarity on that for your situation. So I was like, all right, sis, you're not gonna get the 100% because you fixing to leave, but you can do the little piece of $600 now. And you already know your girl is with scholarship down. I was always applying for those endowed scholarships. I always got that. I would get a grant. I got the same grant throughout my whole entire journey, where it was like either 500 or 1,000. So I was like, okay, just based off that grant, Alexis, you gonna be able to cover this tuition. And y'all, I've got it so good. I quit that job. My tuition was not paid in full anymore, but I still got grants. I still got a refund. The only semester that I didn't get a refund was that first semester because I had missed the scholarship deadline, and then that last semester, so recently, and it was just the $600. And then some other fees that I'll talk about later. But I was like, okay, when I quit the job, I was just fed up with everything. And just thinking back on it now, like, I'm just so grateful and thankful that God kept pushing me. Because when I left the job in 2023, I was done with coursework. I was working on chapter 3. So I hadn't even done my initial proposal yet, and it really just would have been so easy just to walk away from that whole thing and just have been ABD, all but dissertation. But God was like, nah, like, you gonna finish this, okay? And I felt that I wanted to, I was like, that job had caused me so much stress, baby. Listen, I'm walking out of here with my degree, right? So at that point, I was on chapter 3 working on that. And y'all, one thing I will say about my doctoral journey, chapter 1 through 3, that took the longest. Like, that was a long time. Like, this time last year, I had just done, so fall 2023, I had just proposed. So that's the stage before you do your IRB study. So I would say, the chapter 1 through 3 process and the proposal. And then, before that, well, some people do it differently, but for me, before that was my oral exam. So that part really took the longest. That probably was like a year and a half and change, right? And like I said, check out my doctoral playlist. I do have a video about that. But baby, fast forward to May 2024, I was in Italy. So let me back up. So this time last year, I had proposed and I had started the application process for IRB. But after I proposed, there was edits I had to do, and then I went into IRB. So like I said, that chapter 1 through 3 phase, you got your writing chapters 1 through 3. You have to do your proposal, and then you submit to IRB. That's a really like strenuous and long time frame. So that part really took the most. So in May 2024, I actually was in Italy. I was getting ready, or I was on a plane to Italy, and my chair was like, "Hey, girl," he didn't say that, but "Hey, girl, you are, you passed the IRB, all that's good. Start your study." So I was like, okay, gosh, I'm finna go to Italy for 5 weeks, but let me start recruiting so that way when I get back, I'll be able, to kick this thing off. Because I was 8 hours ahead. I was working. I'm on an archaeological dig site, and I was like, girl, we ain't got time to do all that. We is not Superwoman. So I started that IRB process, and can we just let's just spend a little minute on the IRB recruiting process, right? Because I gotta get my notes. So hold on. So y'all, the recruiting for IRB, the institutional review board that looks over all doctoral studies, right? Y'all, that part was probably the most difficult part post chapters 1 through 3. There's the whole application. They want you to change this, do that, be real specific. Once you get it in and get it right, you're good, right? But once you actually start having to recruit, I would say that part was like a lot, y'all. So for my study, I was trying to get between 10 and 15 people. I was recruiting a study for folks with disabilities enrolled in higher education with a mental health diagnosis and registered with student disability services. So I had a lot of stipulations that I had to stick to, and public universities only, right? So that was a whole nother stipulation. Y'all, when I tell you, when I put the call out, I got so many responses. I remember I was on that flight to Italy, and my email was blowing up, but you can already tell they were scammers. I call them like internet gypsies, people just looking for something. Because for my study, I was giving away, if you completed the study, you got a $20 Amazon card. And let me just say this, when you're recruiting people, especially people from marginalized communities, minorities, people with disabilities, things of that nature, you need to make sure that you're giving something for their time. Don't just be asking for stuff and you not compensating the person. So that was just something for me. And then I had a small enough sample size to do it. And I was like, anybody who I interview, I have to give them something for their time, right? So I had that little carrot, and the scammers came for that little $20 Amazon card. Immediately you could tell, just like the language of it, the way it was stated, that this was not a person who would qualify for the study. Then when I sent them the link, you can see where the person completed the application from through Qualtrics, because I did use that platform. You all the way in another country talking about you go to University of San Diego. Some of the universities they were saying wasn't even real universities. So it was that was a major headache. And just trying to find people who qualify, who are going to stick through to the end, with me to get this study done. Even with giving away a $20 Amazon gift card, it was still hard to get people. Oh, just thinking about that is so frustrating. So the recruiting process was so hard. I actually didn't even get to my sample size. I went to get 10 or 15. Once I got to 7 or 8, my chair was like, hey, we good. You've exhausted all efforts. Let's move forward. So that was one of the things with IRB. When you're advertising, I would recommend that, you go to the places, where based on, your IRB stipulations, because you have to have these things approved, go to the places where your sample population size is and recruit. So I was recruiting through student disability services. But because I had left the university, it kind of was hard, for me to, be directly in front of that population. So I used a lot of the organizations that I was a part of. They reposted my flyer. I put it in the Facebook groups for folks who were mental health professionals, educators, things of that nature. So definitely, use those Facebook groups to your advantage, although the scammers are in there as well. So you definitely got to be aware of that. Here was another pro tip that I quickly found out once I got real life people who could, participate in my study. Let them recruit for you. So I know one person gave me, their information. They qualified for the study, and then they were like, "Hey, I have a friend. Can I send it to them?" Most definitely, So let the people who are actually qualified for your study, ask them, "Hey, do you have a friend in your class? Can you give this flyer to your professor?" And that really, really helped me. So shout out to all my study participants who gave me somebody else to make this thing come to completion. Now, here is something else that I would recommend to speed your process up. So like I said, chapters 1 through 3 did take some time. About 1.5 years, maybe it took a little bit of time. And y'all, let me say this, I was working straight through. I worked from August 2020 to December 2024, okay? Or really like October 2024, because that's when I defended. But, I worked straight through. I went, there was only one semester that I was not enrolled, and that was because my chair was not working that summer. So that was the summer after I left the job, and he was like, "Hey, I'm not working, so you don't have to be enrolled." But I still worked on my, study or my chapters 1 through 3 during that time, right? So it took me from August 2020, and then I graduated December 2024. So it took me about 4 years. Now, in order, one thing that I would recommend to doctoral students, in order to be on the timeline that you want to be on, you got to work, Bookie. Okay, listen, I understand we working full time. I was too. I get it. But you have to be doing something. There's always something that you could be doing. Once I got to my IRB stage, the one thing that I would do that really helped to speed these last 2 chapters up was that once I interviewed the person, I coded the data within a week. So that was my personal goal. That once I interview somebody, within 1 week, I'm coding my data. I did a qualitative study. So that means that I had to code themes, things of that nature that were apparent, throughout my study. I coded those things by hand. And that takes time. So like I said, there's always something for you to be doing. Do not wait till the end of the study to code all that data. Girl, you be done forgot stuff. You don't remember this. You don't even know who this person is, who said it. You should be coding as you are interviewing. So that is a pro tip that really helped me to speed my process up. So once I reached out to my chair and was like, "Hey, I'm having a hard time getting people," and he was like, "How many you got?" "Okay, that's good. You've exhausted all efforts. Have you started coding?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, start writing." So guess what? By the time he gave me the thumbs up, I was already ready to write. I didn't have to go and code nothing, baby. I was ready to go, okay? And at that time, I was about to go on another dig to Boston, and I was on chapter 4. So I had already coded, and I started writing immediately. I had already coded that data. I started kind of giving myself bullet points on where I wanted to start to guide me through that data. And y'all, another thing that really helps doing your chapters 4 through 5, when you're coding data, when you are making the data make sense, join in Facebook groups. Shout out to that finished group on Facebook. I'll try to post a screenshot somewhere. But baby, that group got me through, because I was like, "Oh girl, how do I actually code this? I really never coded nothing before." I typed that in that search, a whole bunch of stuff came up. I was like, "Yes, round of applause." Baby, that got me through. So make sure that you're using these Facebook groups, you're asking questions, use the search features. Listen, you ain't the first person that's done this. There's people before you, lots of people who have done this. Take their advice. So that really helped me, y'all. Was being able to, code my data by looking at what other people had done. And then I had, my books as well from my program that I used as well. But the coding process, it really wasn't as hard as I thought that it would be, And if you want to know more about my coding process, drop it in the comments and let me know. Maybe I can make a separate video about that. So let's talk about chapters 4 through 5, okay? When I tell you that chapter 4 through 5 went quick, guess how long it took me to write it, y'all? 12 days. Yes, baby. 1, 2, 12. 12 days total. And it really only took me 12 because when I submitted my 3, he said, "Go back and change this." So I stopped writing or am I submitting my chapter 4? He said, wait a minute, go back and finish or like add to this. So I stopped 5 and then I went back and did that, submitted it. He said, okay, thumbs up, and then I went back to 5. So that cost me like a day in between, but it really would have been like 11 days. That's why I say you always got to be doing something. All that data should be coded so you can just bam, 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 okay? And that's what I was doing. I was on another dig on the flight to Boston. I was in the middle seat too. I gotta ask him not put me in the middle seat again. But anyways, I was in the middle seat, baby, laptop out, going. That whole 3.5 hour flight, baby, that chapter 4 was done. Do you hear me? Okay, so 12 days, right? I was into it. I was not playing games. I was ready to go. And I knew, because this was like August, right? So this is very recent. I was like, oh, girl, you got to defend by October 26th if you're trying to graduate this semester, or you're going to have to wait till May. And you might be in Italy again. And baby, I ain't trying to not go to Italy for, no good reason. So I was like, hey, let's get this sucker on the roll. And I remember I asked my chair, I was like, do you think, that I could make this timeline? And he was like, of course, like, I can't make no promises. I'll say just work towards it. I was like, all right. So I did chapters 4 and 5, y'all. Gave it to him. And one thing, y'all, my chair was amazing. I know people have horror stories about chairs. Through beginning to end, from August 2020 to December 2024, that man was good with me, okay? Whatever I asked him for, he helped me. Ask your chair. Most of us have never written like a dissertation. So I was like, can you, send me like a chapter 4 and 5 that I could read first to kind of give me like a guide on what mine should, kind of be looking like. And he did that, and that really helped me, to guide my own study. Of course, put it in your own words and things of that nature. But for me, like, I need a guide, and that really, really helped. So me using that guide, having my data already coded, and just being like on the ball, it took only 12 days. So that chapters 4 and 5 was like really the quickest. Chapters 1 through 3 took so long, took a year and change. But once you finish that study, you should be, running through this thing, right? Because at this point, we get to the end of the marathon and we trying to make the finish line. You should really be on your P's and Q's. So once chapters 4 through 5 were done, he was like, okay, we're going to send it to the committee. And everybody was like, yeah, this looks good. Let's move forward. And I chose my defense date for October. Y'all, can y'all believe I got COVID? I had COVID like maybe like a week or maybe like less than a week before my defense date. But I was like, baby, only death can keep us from this. We is fixing up. Let me tell you something. We is gonna get through this defense, COVID or no COVID. But I actually was getting over COVID, and it was bad too. I had like a whole cough attack on the day before. I was like, oh Jesus, please help me through this. But I had, been practicing, and that's another thing, with the defense part, you get your dates. I had already, kind of gotten my slides together and sent it to my chair, and he was like, okay, looks good, add here, take away here. And I was like, okay, so I had been practicing, my defense. I went through, my slides, every day that I could during having COVID, which was pretty hard. But I was like, listen, I was in the bed with a laptop just going over it, making sure that I had the points that I wanted to clarify. My defense, was pretty, seamless. My family and friends attended via Zoom. Shouts out to them. And I went through, they asked questions. I did a really good on the questions, and at the end they was like, well, congratulations, you had passed with no edits. So I had no edits to like go back and fix, because sometimes like you do have to do that. But no, ma'am, no edit, shawty, okay? And they was like, welcome to the academy. I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, hallelujah. And speaking of edits, y'all, during this process, you need an editor. Shout out to my editor. That lady was so good. She was so quick. I would use her again. You need an editor. Listen, I'm cheap too, and editing services are expensive. I think it was like a $200 deposit. And then at the end we squared up. I want to say it might have been maybe close to $600 or $700. Editing is expensive, but it is something that you have to invest in, especially with the APA and how the things have to be written. And try to get an editor that has worked with your university's dissertation committee, or not committee, but just like the guidelines for that before, because my editor had edited many dissertations from my university, so she already knew what they were looking for, what to do, what not to do. And I remember on my chair was like, don't do this, and then I told her that, and she was like, no, tell him XYZ. And I was like, oh, okay, she already had it together. So you do need an editor. That whole, right and center at the university, I don't know about that, because when I went to that, they was like, they don't really do dissertation stuff. And I was like, I ain't got time to play. And I wanted the editor to do the editing, right? Don't tell me what to do, you do it. So it's important, for you to invest in that editing. That will help to speed your process up as well, because your chair is going to be combing through all of that, and you don't want to have to be trying to do APA stuff. You just want to focus on, getting the writing out. So make sure that you get an editor. Okay, so once all that was done, can we talk about all the extra fees during your last semester of doctoral programming that you should be aware of? Okay, so there's a tuition. There is a dissertation processing fee that was $73. There is the ProQuest stuff you have to do, because you have to upload your stuff to ProQuest, and you have to pay for that, and you got to buy your dissertation chair a copy of your dissertation. That's $30. Of course, there's the outfits, you got to put that in there. There is regalia as well. Regalia is expensive. You can't get it from Amazon. Some schools are not picky. Now, some schools will say you got to buy it from us. My school was you don't. But when I was looking at Amazon and the one from her, Jones, I was like, you know what, baby, I don't work real hard for this. I'm just gonna have to spend that. It was a little over $700. It was expensive, but it was custom made to me. I got my name initialed in it, and it just looked really nice. No shade, but I could tell the people who had got theirs off Amazon, and the people who had spent that extra cash. And I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. So that is another expense. There are just a lot more expenses during that last semester, because there's a lot of stuff that you have to square up towards the end. I'm very thankful and happy to say that this degree was 100% debt free, baby. The best thing, in addition to being called Dr. Duggan, the best thing was that, baby, ain't nothing coming in the mail for me. That whole 6 months thing, when they send you the bill, that ain't coming up here, baby. It's paid for. If anything, y'all might be refunding me some money, okay? So that was really the best feeling for me, is that not only, being a first generation doctoral, recipient, is that it is debt free. Y'all already know, if y'all watching this channel, debt free Duggan, okay? It's still 100% debt free. So I'm still excited to report that. But, fast forward December 13th, and December 13th is really a special day for me. And it really came full circle, because December 13th, 2013, I got my bachelor's degree in special education. And fast forward 11 years later, December 13th, 2024, I received my doctoral degree in higher education. So that was just wow. I just saw God's hand all over that. Thank you, Jesus. I'm just even thinking about his faithfulness through the process. I knew that I wanted to get a doctoral degree. I said that in 2017. And it came to pass. I got there, and it was you got to take this test, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I felt in my spirit that I wasn't gonna have to. I didn't. Even I also felt in my spirit that I wasn't going to have to pay for the degree out of pocket, all of it. God, made that to come to pass as well. So just God's faithfulness was really just over this whole process. And it just reminds me, sometimes you really don't know what God is doing. On December 13th, 2013, if God would have been 11 years from now, you're gonna get your doctoral degree, child, I might have been Lord, I can't do that. It's just too much going on. So just remembering, that God will not mismanage your life. All of the things, the little things, he will use, and he definitely did that throughout this process. So I'm very thankful, to God. Thank you, Jesus. I'm still like in just like a little bit of shock, like wow, like I actually went back to school for 4 years. No student loan debt, Dr. Duggan. Oh, and here's another thing as well. Listen, okay, future husband, if you're watching this, considering I did not know you throughout this whole process, I didn't even know who you was. My last name will be hyphenated, so let's not have, any extra discussions there. That's just what it is, okay? So now that we got that out the way, back to God's faithfulness, just about, trust God. Don't give up. There's always something for you to be doing. Reach out. A lot of us, who are first generation, college students, period, it is kind of hard, to find our people. But join those Facebook groups, y'all. There are so many people in there who want to help, who just give out good, solid information that really helped me through my journey. And I'm proud to sit here today and say, listen, your girl is Dr. Duggan. I'm an educator by trade. So, starting out as a teacher, shout out to all my teachers, and then seeing that, full circle to having the highest honor, the highest academic honor within education, is really just like, wow. So I'm still, very, very excited. I'm in the process of changing my name to Dr. Duggan on all socials, okay? And I'm just excited, and definitely if you have questions about my doctoral journey, check out my doctoral student playlist. And don't forget to drop down in the comments. Let me know what questions you have. I'm also going to post some fun pictures throughout, because I didn't do like a lot of recording. I just wanted to be in that moment. But I'll post some pictures for y'all to see. And I'm going to see y'all next time. Bye. Dr. Duggan signing off.
I would like to get